I hope you're doing well. I'm Dave. I help business leaders to use technology more effectively. Today, we're going to carry on talking about the CrowdStrike incident. There's a few misconceptions, things that I think business leaders need to understand that's not been very, very clear by us techie people. So I want to make sure that you've got a really clear clarity in your mind, decisions you need to make to try and stop this kind of incident again impacting your business. So let's start with the first most obvious misconception, which was this was unprecedented and was not predictable. Now, I don't think that's true at all, because we know that antivirus programs in the past have caused similar incidents, not at this scale, but it's not that unusual because antivirus programs are buried deep within the kernel, within the operating system. They need to have that access in order to protect the system. That gives the antivirus products the ability to break Windows, which is what happened in this incident. It's not a problem for Microsoft. Well, they could block it, but that would mean blocking third-party antivirus apps, which the EU doesn't want them to do, which is fair enough. I don't really have a problem with that. But anyway, so it's quite common for antivirus programs to crash computers. We had an incident a few years ago when they'll get online. The next problem that people think is that this is a very difficult, complicated problem to fix. And well, it is and it isn't. The problem we have is that while it's very simple that we just need to delete a single file from your computer to fix this, and now we've got some updates which hopefully mean you don't even need to do that. The problem is that how do we get to all these computers? What happened over COVID? Everyone took their laptop, they went to work from home, and we kind of forgot that if we need to do something to those computers because they don't work, how are we going to touch each computer? So a little bit later, we're going to talk about some of the ways you might think about getting that process in place should you need to touch every computer within your organization across the country or multiple countries. So I mentioned that this will never happen again, and this is like a one-off, and that is a big problem because I think we need to plan for this kind of incident to happen again in the future. There's a thing called zero-day exploits, and what that means is that somebody discovers a vulnerability, and that means that today it's exploitable because there's no real patch that's been put into production yet. Now, we've seen exploits happen within 22 minutes now, and with artificial intelligence, it's only going to get worse. So this idea of blocking or delaying updates at scale probably isn't going to work. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't be doing the rings of patch management. So we try on a few machines, then a few more, then a few more. The problem with what we've seen is that that's really not helpful, Dave. And I want you to keep that clapping in. The problem we've seen is that these updates were rolled out at scale in order to try and block those zero-day exploits, I guess. But well, actually, this update was just a log process. It wasn't even doing anything detection-wise. Anyway, so we start with a few machines and then a few more, but we need to do that quite quickly. I don't know what went wrong in this case, but what happens going to happen in the future is we need to get these updates done quickly. That's within minutes, not months. Minutes, not months. So if you think you can delay the updates to protect your business, you can't. So what do we need to do differently? Well, some people are saying, well, we don't use Microsoft software. This is a Microsoft problem. And well, it's not really. All operating systems operate basically the same way. They have a kernel with Linux, Unix, Macs, and they can be affected in exactly the same way. Windows is obviously the most popular operating system by far. I know Mac's growing, but nevertheless, and also Macs is a walled garden, so it's quite hard. Antivirus products don't really work very well on Apple Macs because they're blocked from exactly this kind of access. Okay, and some people have said, well, this is a cloud problem. We need to move the data back off the cloud to our local devices. That isn't true either. That's not going to help fix the problem. All it means is that you're going to have less backups of your data. Cloud system is if you imagine you're creating this massive computer system at scale, it's going to be much more resilient than an individual device. Somebody's saying, well, it's Microsoft's fault. And I say, it's not. And CrowdStrike, are they a dodgy company? No, the product's really good. It's very well regarded. As I say, I'm not quite sure how they managed to get this vulnerability. I'm not quite sure how they managed to get this into production. Somebody made a mistake along the line. Obviously, somebody made a mistake along the lines, and they got this obviously, somebody made a mistake, and they managed to get this update into production across to lots of machines, which then caused them to blue screen. That shouldn't have happened, and I'm sure it won't happen in the same way exactly again. But to imagine that it's CrowdStrike's fault, it is, but it's not Microsoft's fault. But these kind of incidents are going to happen again in the future, and you need to plan for that. What do you need to do? Let's just crunch some numbers to have a think about this. Let's assume that it costs £1,000 per device for somebody to have to go out and fix it because it no longer boots. And I think that's optimistic, but let's just assume that. So with our disaster recovery plan, take the number of computers you have in your organization, times it by £1,000, euros. Let's put that in our disaster recovery budget, okay? So what kind of things might we want to do? Well, if you're an airline, let's look at the airline industry. Why not print off blank boarding passes and have a stamp under each desk? This is going to cost tens of pounds potentially to have. And that way, should your computer system go down at any point, if you've got the manifest list, you can just write out on a piece of paper, the person and the gate and whatever, and hand it to them. They can take their own luggage through airside and it can be put on the plane. These problems are solvable. It's going to delay things. You're going to have to cancel some flights, but not all flights. Obviously, it's not going to be very easy for people that are doing changes to get those through because they can't access the back-end systems. So maybe we need to batch these up. Maybe we need to come up with ways of recording the information, dealing with it later. I mentioned before, make it so when people phone your company, it says, "Hi, we're having problems with X at the moment. Please bear with us." And that way, people know there's a problem. They'll give you the benefit of the doubt. Here's some more questions I thought of. Right. If your IT system goes down, how are you going to communicate with your staff and your customers? If everyone's on Teams and you haven't got their mobile numbers, how are you going to communicate with them? How's your disaster recovery team going to communicate with each other? Maybe you want to look at some of these devices that can communicate when the internet's not working. And there's several bits of technology out there. They're not expensive. They're not particularly complicated. But some of these peer-to-peer communication devices look really interesting. I'll do a video on one, actually. I was thinking maybe we can do something so people have a live CD that they boot off. So you could have an operating system you boot off your USB stick. Obviously, if you've blocked USB on your computers, which you probably should, why don't you stop interrupting my talking? So you could have a live CD, but how are you going to make that work so people can load it if you've blocked USB? Tricky. And what if you need to re-image all of your computers because they've got a virus at scale and they're all around the country? How are you going to do that? I suggest we create some kind of surgery so people bring devices to certain locations. You're probably going to need to partner with other companies to deliver that. How's that going to work? We need to have a think about that. And I want to think about how your disaster recovery team are going to communicate. You need to make sure you've got a WhatsApp group or some kind of method of communicating with the team so you can get stuff done, because next time we might not be so lucky. This time, between 0.5% and 1% of Windows devices stopped booting. What if it was 20% or 30%? How's your business going to be impacted? How are you going to get things up and running again? How are you going to re-image your machines at scale without any loss of data? These are all things we can plan for right now, today, and it doesn't involve any failure of systems for this to be a valuable exercise, because it will help make sure that your business stays safe and can up and running again quickly in the event of an incident. And as I say, if you budget £1,000 per user, that's quite a lot of money to spend on disaster recovery, and could mean it saves you a substantial amount of money. I hope that makes sense. Let me know what you think in the comments, and thanks for watching.